and I'm bringing up time.net, or whatever it's called.
World Clock. It's the World Clock on timeanddate.com.
There you go.
All right.
You really like you want to make sure that they get credit between the three of us. Like that, if we don't call it the right thing, like there's lost revenue between the three of us.
I'm trying desperately to get us an endorsement deal here.
He's got his endorsement. Yeah, well, it's about time that you got an endorsement deal.
Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 233. Clipped below.
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams. Daniel, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing great, TGA 3D. It is the month of May, one of my favorite months, not just because it's my brother's birthday and my birthday and Mother's Day,
And Star
but because...
Wars.
And May 4th, yes, May the 4th be with you, everybody. But it's also just an opportunity to make a ton of jokes and puns using the word May. So if I may, let me proceed with a couple of puns. Actually, I may not do that right now, so just to avoid it. So
I have no fear they're coming down the line, though.
That's about it. But yes, to answer your question, I'm doing great, and May also means that we're just a month away from E3, and we have a ton of crap to talk about regarding that. So we shall dive in if we may.
Awesome. Brent, how about yourself? How you doing this week?
What's up? My divergence of destruction! My sunderers of slaughter! How art thou?
Good.
Very cool.
Sunderers. That actually
torn apart.
Yes, torn asunder. Torn Asunder would be a really good name for a heavy metal band.
I feel like
I would actually be
is.
shocked if somebody actually hasn't already got that.
There are like 18 in Seattle right now that are already called that.
Torn Asunder is opening for Torn Asunder this weekend at the Space Needle.
You doing good, though?
Yes, I'm great, man. Fatherhood is going well. Spring cleaning is underway. We're playing musical rooms in the house. We're going to move the stuff that's in the rec room into the basement. We're going to move the office into the rec room. We're going to move Zeeley's playroom into the office. And so that whole process is, now underway. Phase 1 of 4 is almost complete in the master plan to free up a little bit of space here on the top floor of the house.
I hope you like it when you're done, because that's a lot to do to not like it when you're done.
You're not kidding. I'm going to like it, or else.
All right, well, we've got plenty of news in the pipe this week, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet. Gauntlet! All right, guys, we are here in the gauntlet, and the first bit of news is no surprise to anyone that follows Nintendo over the last few years.
More of the same.
They are not going to have an official presence at E3, but they've got a lot of other plans for the E3 time frame. DK, you want to kind of take us down through some of their plans?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So for a company who's really not that concerned with digital distribution on their actual consoles, they're sure into it when it comes to events. Just like last year, Nintendo is going to be having their press event via streaming media, Nintendo Direct live stream happening on Tuesday, June 10th at 9 a.m. And everyone tuning into that will be catching glimpses of a video program that will reveal information and details about what Nintendo says will be its platform and its games in 2014 and beyond. Not only that, though, throughout all of E3, they'll be streaming straight from their booth on the showroom floor. The Nintendo Treehouse will be there offering in-depth game demos, and they don't really have like a schedule, just kind of like, hey, you should probably watch this more often than not.
Yeah, Nintendo's not big on like giving you dates anything's going to happen. It's just sort of like,
It'll happen, and tune in, and it'll be happening live and unscripted, so let's hope the systems don't crash. But, whatever. We'll get to see what they have there. But one of the big things that they're doing,
Nintendo
obviously, a huge focus for them right now is Super Smash Brothers for both the Wii U and 3DS, and they're going to be hosting a tournament surrounding the game at the Nokia Theater in Los Angeles that is open to a lot of, I think, just open to the public, but it's going to be live streamed along with the thousands of fans that they expect to be in attendance. And it's going to feature 16 highly skilled Super Smash Brothers players to participate in the tournament. But if you can't be there and want to play the game, they're also partnering with Best Buy, like they have in the past, to provide Super Smash Brothers at several Best Buy locations. I'm sure they'll release a list as we get closer to E3, so you can participate in actually playing the game and feel like you're at E3, except you don't have to deal with all the sweat and the noise. Well, you're at Best Buy, so maybe you do.
Good point. Yeah.
So what do you guys make of all that? What do you think of Nintendo's strategy? They're putting a lot of emphasis on Super Smash Brothers. You know, for me, E3 is all about reveals, and I'd rather get 30 seconds of a Zelda trailer than I would an entire, or a Metroid game, than I would an entire tournament of Super Smash Bros. We already know about that game. We've been inundated with information about that game, but not to steal their thunder. I mean, it sounds like it'd be fun, but what do you guys think of the whole thing?
I got to tell you that it does seem, like I was saying at the top, it seems like more of the same to me. It seems like basically the same general game plan from last year. Just sliding some of the cards on the table around, but overall seems like, what their strategy was last time. I like the tie-in with the Best Buy stores. I think that's cool. I'm not opposed to the idea of the digital event either, but it just doesn't seem like they've really got an original idea or a new idea or an exciting idea. It seems like with so many other aspects of Nintendo business model, they're like, let's just do what we did last time.
Yeah,
and
since it works so well, does that signify to you?
Exactly.
Does that make you think that they look? They're like, yeah, that was good enough. So let's just do that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're just lacking in ambition or lacking in good ideas, but they just haven't done anything right now that's impressed me. And admittedly, I understand that I do tend to be maybe a little bit more Nintendo skeptical than others, but I just haven't seen anything from them yet that tells me that they're really hungry. And I think that they could turn it around. They could turn it around with some really big reveals, but
they only have to do everything differently, though,
they could
right?
reveal.
What was that, TJ?
They only have to do everything they've done differently to turn it around, though.
No, they have to show 3 30-second trailers from big games, and they will win E3. I mean, it's simple, but they have to have the games. And
I don't even know if it's quite that simple, but I do agree. It's like the whole point is they need to do stuff. That would be a good start. Like, here's the thing. Like, them having this tournament, them having you be able to play the games in Best Buy, I got to be honest, I think those are awesome.
Yeah.
Along with the stuff that people really care about with E3, which is, like longer term or the big announcement stuff. The thing with Nintendo, though, and I was actually talking to Brent just before we start recording about this, is like they released the announcement with this Mega 64, video, and it's just like everything Nintendo does. It wasn't really that funny. I didn't think it wasn't really that. It was okay. They don't seem to quite get it. Like, I don't know exactly what it is about them, but they just can't quite find this sweet spot. The thing is, I guarantee you, these videos that they're going to release are going to be like their Nintendo Directs they've had up to this point, which is to say, as boring as their E3 announcements from previous years. I mean, it's just that they will show you an hour-long thing with like literally maybe 2 full minutes of footage people want to see within it, and they're going to stretch that out over a huge thing. I'm about as big a Nintendo fan as there is, and I really am becoming more and more frustrated with them every year with these sorts of things. I love the idea of being able to play Super Smash Brothers at a Best Buy prior to being able to play it, because I'm assuming it's the Wii U version, which is not going to be out for a few months. Yeah. And it's just, but it's like last year they had they had like 4 different games, didn't they? They had 4 of their releases at that point, some of which haven't even been released yet, like Mario Kart and some other stuff that that still hasn't come out a year later. Like I don't know, it just they just don't really seem to get it. I don't know what the problem is, but
if they promised you, if you went to E3 or tuned in, that you got your own Reggie Fils-Aimé, would you be happy at that point?
Absolutely not. I mean, no,
They could promise to get hit with a fucking bus at this point. He's done.
I got to be honest. They need to change their whole cast of characters, and that includes their fucking management. I mean, they need to do something.
Not just their
differently.
management, their fucking management.
Their fucking management.
Well,
All right,
their management's in great shape. It's the fucking management that's the problem.
well, yeah. I mean, I think it's very clear. All right. Next up, we have, since there's not enough garbage on TV already, Microsoft is going to make programs about digging through garbage to show you on your Xbox. Brent, you want to tell us about the Xbox original programming that they're bringing?
Yes, indeed. Microsoft has announced a new programming initiative to bring original television content to the Xbox in the form of Xbox Originals, which will be streaming on Xbox Live, and it's going to include a whole plethora, a whole kaleidoscope of dramas, comedies, documentaries, animation, quote-unquote unscripted shows, live events, and more. They've hired some top-tier talent from around the entertainment industry to help them bring this to life. They've partnered with names like Steven Spielberg and Ridley Scott. But the bottom line of all this is that Microsoft is trying to expand the kinds of entertainment that people associate with Xbox. Despite Phil Spencer's recent focus on games and commitment that games were going to be a focus, there's going to be other stuff too. And so maybe we should review the meaning of the word focus. But without being too snarky about this yet, the point is that this is going to be a value add for people with the Xbox Live service. They're going to be able to watch these shows through the Xbox, and this is just yet further evidence that Microsoft is trying to diversify the entertainment platform that they see as Xbox, and to reach out and draw more people in. And with the number of subscribers that they have now, which is 48 million, we talked about this on the Axe Factor, so I've already been through a lot of this.
You got all these stats.
But they've got 48 million subscribers on Xbox Live right now. If they can even get a fraction of those people watching some of these original series that they're going to be putting out, they're going to be competing with some of the most successful stuff playing on cable or online right now. So there is an opportunity here for them to do something with it. I think the thing that I would point out that's kind of an interesting contrast is over on Xbox, Microsoft adds value to my game console by providing me reality TV shows. And over on PlayStation, Sony adds value to my game console by giving me games.
Yes.
So, I think you can see like a really clear delineation between what content PSN is dumping on PSN Plus subscribers and what content Microsoft's providing to Xbox Live subscribers. I think you see the contrast in where these two companies are with their approach for things moving forward. Having said all that, maybe it's a good idea to diversify. Maybe it's a good idea to try to get out into new markets and do different things because Microsoft's traditional business is obviously kind of in trouble, that being the desktop PC business.
Well, yes, I see that, but here's the issue with that is that the entertainment medium in terms of television programming is not suffering from a lack of content. I mean, there's almost too much
suffering from a lack of good content, but
I mean, there's a lot of content. There is some. I mean, everyone talks about Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and every other show. I mean, I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time watching particular shows. So the draw of saying, well, we're going to infuse all these Xbox original programs in an effort to win over who? Who are you winning over? People who can't get enough TV, so they're going to buy an Xbox to watch more TV, because gamers want games is the bottom line. And this is a big step that they're investing a lot in. You don't bring on Steven Spielberg for cheap. You don't announce all these. I mean, they had quite a few pieces of content they announced, both as already planned and then some in development type of stuff, and that doesn't come cheap. Whereas, like you said, I mean, I think a lot of people who have an Xbox One right now just want some shit to play, and and even looking at kind of Sony's model of going back and bringing old school games and older things, and I don't know. I don't want to be ultra negative and throughout the whole episode, but there's nothing about this that's going to make me want to. I'm not a TV guy, so this isn't my market. I don't watch a lot of shows. I don't have shows that I call my own that I watch a lot. So I'm not particularly interested in this, but I understand what they're going for. But I also see the flaws, and it's a very competitive space that already has a ton of content. They'd be wiser to just make themselves stand out as a game console.
You could kind of argue, though, that that's the same thing. That's the same problem with gaming, though. I mean, there's just a huge plethora of choices in gaming, too, and that doesn't hurt it. So having a lot of choices in TV is not necessarily a bad thing. And matter of fact, I actually think when you look at like just how well things like Netflix have done with their exclusive shows like House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, things like that. You see Amazon is putting a lot of focus on making their own content. They haven't quite had the breakout maybe that Netflix has, but they have a lot of original content that you can only see there, and they're signing like exclusive deals. I don't think Microsoft doing this is such a bad idea. I do sort of think the scale that they're doing it on, it's a pretty big gamble. Like it's either going to pay off for them huge, and or not. And my biggest problem is I don't like they're like one of the very first products of this is I joked at the beginning talking about garbage is they're doing a documentary on the whole digging up the supposed ET landfill, exactly the big landfill that had all the ET cartridges, and it's like that's cool, and I think that's a neat thing for somebody to do. I don't necessarily think I don't think that it's going to draw a bunch of people. It's kind of gaming focused, but yet, but that's it's like a video.
That's like the one thing they've got that's gaming focused.
Exactly, and but that's also the only thing that they're like even working on now. You know what I mean? So like, that is that people really know what's coming down the pipe. So I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see if the content they bring out is really good quality. This could be a huge thing for them. But I don't also see them bringing out something
too.
What's that?
There's Halo stuff.
The point.
Well, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, but we haven't. Do we know anything about it at this point? We just know it's a series. Exactly.
You need to
know. Come on, it's got Halo in the title. It's a success.
All people need to know about Destiny was that it was being made by Bungie, and the more people are playing it, they're kind of talking about how, okay. So I mean, just because you have this huge connection to a brand doesn't mean it's just a definitive sell.
Well, that's how it works in the real world, but I mean, that's not how it works in business.
I do think that those numbers, their numbers were like 48 million people were connected on Xbox Live. I kind of wonder. I mean, like I'm just looking here. Like I think there's only 80 million units sold ever of a 360, and you got to figure like at least 80% of those were Red Ring of Deaths. So I don't even see how there are 48 million.
Failure rate was?
I don't even know. It was like 10%, but early on. But anyway, my whole point though is I sort of find those numbers slightly dubious. I'm not saying that they're completely made up, but I do.
Okay.
And if you could say 48 million people are going to watch that show, like that's of course never going to happen. So I mean, you got those numbers keep coming down in smaller and smaller increments. Who's going to watch like even if they come out with some breakout House of Cards, Game of Thrones, like some huge property
Game of Cards
that you have to have an Xbox for. I mean, nobody's going to make that kind of content available on that
everyone's
platform.
Everyone's talking about, House of Thrones, so I got to go buy an Xbox for the originals,
House of Thrones sounds like an awesome name for a toilet store.
Welcome to House of Thrones. Have a seat.
All right. Well, so next up, we have we finally got we actually got another release date for Drive Club.
How many times
Maybe it'll make this one. DK, you want to tell us about some of the details we got around Drive Club for later this year?
Yeah, well, it looks like you'll be getting into the driver's seat this October.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, well, the virtual driver's seat anyway. And this is the latest date, October 7th, 2014. The game from Evolution Studios now has an official release date after, of course, missing the launch of the PlayStation 4 back in November of 2013, being delayed until sometime around now, and now officially being pushed back to October 7th. But of course, Shuhei Yoshida did talk a little bit about the challenges when you're doing something like this, saying, quote, "The problem with being ambitious is you have to be prepared to accept there will be challenges along the way. Same philosophy I have with my hair. What Drive Club offers has not been previously achieved in this category, and because of this, the team needed more time to give you the game you are waiting for." So, Yeah, again, don't
Except
announce
that
the
game
release
wasn't
date.
good enough, so we're now making another version of that game that
Yes.
you will want, because
Yes.
you wanted the one that was going to be out at release, but
At release,
that one didn't
yes.
come out, so
But
we
I
made
will
a
say
different
this:
one
they
that you'll
released
want.
basically a trailer was the release date announcement trailer, and the game looks pretty damn good, I think. So, what do you guys think? I mean, is it too little, too late for Drive Club? Is October a good time to release this game?
Man, this fucking game ain't coming out. This is all bullshit. And here's how I can tell you why it's bullshit. The fact that they're releasing this game on October 7th. There's no fucking way that's a real release date. You want to know why?
Why?
Because here's what else is coming out on October 7th. Alien Isolation, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor,
Ooh.
Dragon Age Inquisition,
Uh-oh.
and then Drive Club. Which of these 4 titles is not going to make it? There's no fucking way. That's how I know that
pretty
this is
competitive.
bullshit. They picked the busiest day of the year. filled with-
Don't you think that's exactly why they would release it at that date, though? They're like, look, if we release it now, no one will see it. No one will criticize us over it.
That's my whole point, is when this fucking thing doesn't come out, nobody will notice because they're too busy playing one of those good games.
They'll be like, no, it came out. You remember?
But you don't think the game looks good?
No,
I mean, it's not hard for a racing game to look good. That's the
Exactly,
problem. Racing
yeah.
games, as much as I love them, they are like it's so easy for them to look impressive. The thing is, Drive Club just isn't really doing anything that really sets, it's not doing anything.
This is the issue. I'm sorry not to cut you off.
It's so
but this-
blah. Nintendo needs to buy it. Like, I mean, it's honestly.
But this is the thing, and this is
Damn,
what
dude,
I
you, like, went
understand
for
what
the
you're
jugular.
saying. But this is what I'm saying. They're saying they're talking about the reason why it's delayed is because it's so ambitious. What is so ambitious? What does it do? Like, do you guys know?
It always looked a lot like Forza Horizon to me, to be honest with you. Like in that sort of like open world kind of, you get your car. I'm not saying exactly it plays exactly like that.
Like if they're really making the definitive next gen social racer, that's great. I'm all for it. I'll definitely watch videos of it when it comes out and figure out if maybe I want to invest in it. But they've just destroyed any confidence I might have had that the game was going to be what was promised. I mean, the fact that the creative director on the game changed midship tells me that there was some pretty
and
serious
essentially
problems.
they changed the game, right? I mean, in that like they said like, look,
Well,
it's just not going in the right direction. We're going to. I mean, it sounds like it was a pretty massive
go back
change,
to the drawing board type of quote, but
which usually means starting over
I'm
from
guessing
scratch
that- I'm
almost.
guessing that
Other
the
than
Drive
like
Club that we see in October is not going to be the Drive Club that they had on the drawing board. At the PlayStation 4 announcement event.
Well, I guess we won't know until we get a chance to look under the hood.
Yeah, which should come out sometime in 2015.
I'll be playing Alien Isolation. You guys let me know how it is.
Hey, that's not fair. I'm definitely going to wait until it comes out free for PlayStation Plus.
Yes.
All right. So, last but not least,
We've
release.
trashed everything so far, so let's see what's up next. Sorry, whoever you are.
I'm not fucking sorry.
So, last but not least, we do have a release date window that has been given to us, and it's a little later than we expected for Mad Max.
Ooh.
Brent, do you want to tell us what we got to see from Mad Max this week?
What do you know? It's another game that ain't fucking coming out this year. So Mad Max has been delayed. Warner Brothers Interactive announced today, originally planned for 2014, now coming out sometime next year. They did give us a new trailer, I guess as a consolation prize, and also to announce the new release window. It's also worth noting that Avalanche Studios, who of course is working on Mad Max, but also did another little game series you might have heard of called Just Cause. There's also rumors that Just Cause 3 might be revealed very, very soon. Say at maybe a video game event coming up sometime in the next 6 weeks. So anyway, we'll find out more about that. But right now, the only official thing that we have to tell you is Mad Max is coming to PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One sometime in 2015 until they delay it again.
No negativity, but
Why on
I mean,
earth
come
would
on.
I be
Why
negative?
do
I'm
you
just
see these
kidding.
as negative things when all we're doing is calling them out on what they're doing?
No,
I mean,
I know. I let me just say this: the trailer, the new trailer, I thought looked pretty good, but it seems like really barren. Am I the only one? Like, I mean, there's like
It's a Mad Max game. Have you?
I mean,
seen
yeah, that
the
is sort of
movies?
the.
Well, I know that, but what I'm saying is, like, I mean, they also got to make it a fun game. You know, I mean, do you just drive with like nothing for a while?
They've got like a year to work on it, so I don't. I mean, That's the thing with a lot of these. It's becoming harder and harder not to be a little bit jaded by, like, you're seeing footage from a game that frankly is quite a ways out. Same thing we talk about with something like Drive Club, and a lot of these other games. I mean, these worlds are becoming like worlds where they're persistent worlds, where a lot of times the things that are in the world that you are going to deal with when the game finally comes out just don't exist right now. I mean, because the game's not out there, so it is a little bit hard, I think, sometimes to show a real. It's like you can have 6 people jump in a Titanfall map that you've made to show, hey, look, this is the product we're going to have when it comes out in 6 months to a year or whatever. It's a little harder when you're like, look, we want this kind of massive scale game where everybody will sort of be, out there, when you're like a year or two out. I just don't think it kind of comes across as well. Plus, frankly, that the theme of the game is kind of in that vein, so it's probably going to look a little bit like that even in game, I would think. Yeah. Did when you played Red Dead Revolver, did it not look barren when you were out in the West? I think at times games are going to look like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, but it has to do what it needs to do to stand out from the crowd and deliver on what Mad Max fans want at the same time. But there's already a ton of competition, and I guess Tina Turner was wrong. I guess we do need another hero.
Hey, don't beat her up over it. All right, guys, we're here in the main topic this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about the way that you will be getting and playing your games going forward, and sort of how we feel about it.
That's how you'll be good.
With being negative now,
with the digital divide coming, where basically everything is getting closer and closer to a point where people are getting games streamed digitally to their unit. You don't get physical copies of games, as well as just the places that you go to get that content. The places like GameStop really having some definitely kind of tweaking their format to be successful. DK, you want to kind of take us through some of the stories this week and why we're talking about it?
Yeah, well, initially Wayne Dye of the EBA Axehead Army had reached out and, just was bringing up a very, poignant topic right now because we got these new consoles. There's a lot of digital distribution on the last consoles. More and more things are becoming digitally distributed and moving away from the retail purchase, as we've spoken about for years now on this show. But, one of the big things that I think has, been a revelation this past week as well is the fact that GameStop, obviously, very popular in the gaming industry for its retail presence within the gaming sector, is closing 100 of its 20 stores to focus more on mobile Apple stores and, of course, the digital distribution that comes along with today's gaming content. So I think we're kind of at a really interesting point in the evolution of interactive entertainment where people are excited about being able to access things digitally, but also starting to, create a list of concerns. Okay, so what happens, as Wayne Dye submitted to us about his content on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 that he's downloaded? This stuff can't be maintained forever in terms of, both just the distribution of it, the maintenance of it, what happens if something goes away. So as we're going on from generation to generation, we just wanted to talk today, and I want to get your guys' opinion on the way these things are being handled and the concerns on behalf of consumers when it comes to acquiring content digitally, what your legal rights are with it, but also just kind of, the concerns that you might have in acquiring your content and not having that physical disc in front of you.
I think that all of this is just a sign of the growing pains that human culture is going through as more and more of our culture, of our economy, moves online and it becomes, just data in the cloud. And I think that certainly there are some companies in some areas that do this better than others, but ultimately I think that, we're seeing I think in something like the PlayStation Now service, I think that we are seeing the beginnings of maybe a long-term strategy to address this exact concern, at least on Sony's side. But certainly the idea that they're going to have some streaming service that is always going to be a part of your PlayStation experience, whether you're on a PlayStation 3, a Vita, a PlayStation 4, or whatever their next-gen console will end up being. I think that certainly a service like that seems, to my mind, to be Sony's answer to this dilemma, and say, okay, we're going to set this service up that will allow you to play any game from our catalog that you want to, and they use it as a value add, as a way to entice you into the PlayStation Plus service, where you will no doubt get some free access to games, and then other things you'll probably pay either a rental fee for or a subscription for or something like that. So they're gonna try to turn this exact concern that we're talking about into a business model, into a motivator to get people to spend money with them.
Yeah, I think you have some very good points there. I think the way Sony is kind of looking at it is sort of going around the whole problem of I don't have physical media to save. Well, that's okay. We'll make sure that we maintain a service that allows that material to be readily available to you, to rent or buy again and play on different systems. The problem with that is, even in that, there's choices that are made where we're going to have 90% of the library or 80% of the library. There's always going to be titles, and that one title may be that one game that you were the only person in the world that loved, but you did love it. And there's always going to be content there. There's also, there's stories already where, Sony, I think a few months ago announced that they're going to be shutting down service for games like SOCOM and the Resistance franchise, and games that only came out a few years ago, like Gran Turismo 5. Now, you might say, well, Gran Turismo 6 is out. Well, there's a lot of people that actually have a lot of do not care for a lot of the changes they made in 6 and prefer, and sometimes in some cases built hundreds of dollars worth of equipment just to play, sort of in a professional sense, something like Gran Turismo 5, and the servers are going offline for that. I really have, there's concerns for me that all the choices they can make with all these different changes that they're doing, there's always going to be content lost. Even when you talk about there being options for downloading games, those services usually are only available for a certain amount of time. Like, for instance, I had Age of Empires, the collection I'd bought through the Microsoft Store. Well, they sent me an email and they said, look, if you want it, you got to download it now. We'll allow you to download the install again, so that you can save that, copy it to a disk or burn it off. But you can only do that for so long. Yeah. You would literally have to go through your entire content once a month, to make sure oh, wait a minute, here's one that's going out and I need to download something new. There's going to be this window, and I'm afraid we're in it right now, where there's a lot of content that there is going to be stuff lost. And when we get further where everything starts in that level, I don't think it'll be quite as bad going forward. That content will sort of been born on the internet and with that as a sense, and so it'll kind of probably be easier to keep it. Yeah. But real quick, my last little point to that, one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3 is a game called Grip Shift. It's a game that it's just this little kind of, it's almost like a puzzle racing game. You kind of have to race through it at the fastest speed to get there, whatever. Well, at a certain point, they removed it from the PlayStation Store. It's still, you can still play it on PS3. I can even still download it from when I bought it years ago when it first came out. But that's something that you would think the game is maybe 500 megabytes. How much space does that take up on a server that holds thousands of games, yet they still chose to take it off the store? So even when right now it shouldn't be a problem to keep a lot of this content, it's already a problem for them to keep a lot of this content available.
And just my real own, I agree with pretty much with everything you guys said, but my only real thought is that, as we go into that age when people are used to products being born, having a life cycle, the life cycle of something digitally distributed is all about its exposure, and that's the thing, because the life cycles for a physical product live on in the sense that, if I go to the mom and pop store up the street and go to take my boys, and we just go there on a Saturday for the hell of it and walk around, I was showing them Dreamcast games, and they were like, oh, Power Stone, and I was, and that got me talking to them about, different fighting games and different types of Dreamcast games, which inspired us to play the Dreamcast. And the thing about the digital stuff is you've got those older libraries, but you're mostly into what's out now. So the discoverability is a really prolonged effort. And even like you said, a lot of them might go away. If a game exists digitally only, it's not going to be promoted 5 years after it released or when the next console gen comes out. So how will you come across it unless do people to think about in a sense of another medium? Do people
advertise old books? I mean, do you still need to hear about like A Tale of Two Cities? I mean, you don't. But when people find out about it, they go to a library, they go online, they do whatever, they do what they want to find that old material. It's like you're right in that
what I'm saying is you won't be able to find it, right? You won't be able to actually get it, will you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see what you're saying, is that, we're going, or at least I guess what you're saying is that there's a fear that you're going to have these classic titles, like the gaming equivalent of a Dickens novel or something like that, but there is no there is no way to just go to the library and check that out.
Well, that's what I was sort of saying, and I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood your point, DK, because I'm saying like that's the problem though, is when you don't have this server space dedicated to hold that game there, so that when somebody does want it 10 years from now,
or you don't give people the freedom to just own the game themselves, pass it around amongst their friends, back it up wherever they see fit, etc. In a way, I kind of feel like, again, it's like the first point I made. This is kind of like growing pains. It's like the entire human race moved online, relatively quick. I mean, within the last 20 years, this has happened. The fact that we do see this as a problem, as a dilemma that needs to be solved, will be the driving force that fixes it. In the same way that gamers were really not happy about DRM, and what do you know? Season passes are pretty much gone. DRM pretty much gone.
I don't know.
There's a few companies that still do it, but by and large, look at Sony. I mean, Sony, fucking marketed the PlayStation 4 on the basis of no DRM. Borrow a game from a friend, throw it in, no problem. You see a lot of companies moving away from DRM on the PC. I think that the fact that the customer base wants those things is what motivated companies into providing them. And in the same sense, I think that the fact that people will want to be able to play those classic games is going to put pressure on game companies to deliver that too.
I do have one question. Like the one thing I've never quite understood in like today, like in this day and age right now, is because of what you were just talking about, how the fact that, so much content now has only ever existed digitally, like maybe, in certain cases, like certain DLC and things like that, it never came on a physical copy. It was always, on the cloud.
Right.
It's sort of crazy to me to think that should make things like that easier. The fact that all this information is digital should make the fact that you should be able to get any game that was ever made that existed on a computer at any point that is just digital bits of information, because it's digital bits of information, should make it that much easier to archive and therefore have it at any point in the future.
Very true.
Yet if anything, like I tell you, I went back and was playing an old PC game, Shogo. What was it? Shogo it was like it's an old PC anime kind of shooter game. I know. And I could not get like the most up-to-date patch for it. I mean, this is a game that's, maybe 15 years old at this point. I'm not saying that's super old, but it's a game that like, a major patch to fix like problems that had with it afterwards is like almost impossible to find now. I mean, I was able to find it on like an old, Gamers Hell server or something like that, finally find it and download it, but it's becoming harder and harder to find that digital information that existed, so easily back there. And if anything, you would think that would be so easy to keep. The same reason that like I look at companies like, drives me crazy that somebody like Sony, like why would you ever remove any of your games from your PlayStation Store? Like it just that they have a digital copy of that somewhere. Why is that not, like, why can you no longer go on and buy?
Yeah, it can't be that resource intense to just have that sitting on a hard drive somewhere.
Exactly. And why would you do it anyway? Like, what's the point of removing something? The only reason is to force your hand.
Yeah, to force you to buy new stuff.
To force you to buy new stuff. Because, I mean, let's say it's not to keep you to be organized. I mean, you look at any of these stores, there's so much content. Organization is not the problem. You can search by any way you want to search now, by the type of game, by the...
just look at competing services. Like look at buying music on iTunes or whatever. There does seem to be a very apparent difference in the attitude towards content and older content and things like that. It does seem to me that the video game business specifically is very focused on the here and now.
Oh, absolutely.
And they have the perception that everybody wants the latest and greatest, and nobody cares about what happened yesterday. Where you look at the music,
they make
business,
the highest profit margin off the latest and greatest. I think is the problem. Like they can sell those old games, but the only way they would be able to sell them is to sell them at much smaller amounts. So it's just not as worth it to them. Right. But I mean, again, it's still
by contrast
should be worth
to that, like the TV business or the movie business is all about we've got the entire Stanley Kubrick collection, every film he ever made, or we've got the entire lineup from the Beatles or Bob Dylan or whatever. There's a real emphasis on preserving and celebrating that classic stuff, and maybe it's just because of the relative youth of the video game industry that they haven't quite woken up to that. But certainly players have that impulse, that desire to seek out and experience the classic titles of the medium.
I just feel like in this day and age, this shouldn't be a problem.
I agree.
It's
a problem. It's primarily a business problem. I think it's primarily a problem from the people who are in charge of maintaining the PlayStation Store or whatever.
No, admittedly, I totally agree with you there. Which does give me hope that it's only a current problem. Like it's only just like
it's not a technological problem. This is a problem that gets fixed the second that somebody
decides they want to fix it.
Writes a memo on a piece of paper and says our policy is now X instead of Y.
That's what I hope.
This changes.
That's why I hope that all of this content is still stored away. Worst case, we can go to the NSA. I'm sure they've got copies of it. So I'm not that worried that we can't get these when we need them. At
least we can rely on them for something.
All right, guys. Well, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our battle cries of the week, and my battle cry is going to go out to the announcement of the DLC for Mario Golf World Tour. That's the new Mario Golf coming out for the 3DS. The first Mario Golf out in quite some time, actually. I don't think we had an official one out for the Wii or the DS. So this has been a while since we've had a new Mario Golf, and I have mixed feelings about this. I'm not a big fan of DLC, especially day one DLC like this is, but I will say I feel like Nintendo is at least sort of looking at this in a new way, and we'll have to see if it pays off for them. Mario Golf, the game, the core game, is only going to be $29.99. Now, most first-party 3DS games are usually $39.99 when they're initially released. The DLC is going to be something like $6 a pop. There's 3 of them, so $18. Or you can buy a season pass for it, which I'm not crazy about either, but it's only $15. So essentially, you can get all the content that's going to be coming for it for an additional $15, which would bring the total cost of the game to only about $45, which is, I got to be honest, I sort of think that is not the worst way of looking at it. Bring out the core game, not at full price, and then try to tack on some DLC later. But hey, you can get the full game. It's got 10 courses, a ton of characters. If that's enough for you, great. If you want some extra content, here's some extra money. But we're sort of discounting the game to begin with to sort of balance that out. And I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about it. I would prefer for the DLC to just be added in because it's only like 6 courses and 3 characters. So and I have a feeling that it's probably on the cartridges, anyway. But it'll be kind of interesting to see how this works for them, and if they start doing this more in the future, where they did it with their Rusty's baseball game, where they give you a free-to-play game, but to get other parts of it, you have to buy the other parts of it. So I feel like Nintendo is at least looking at new ideas. I won't necessarily say that they're the best ideas, but at least looks like they're woefully aware of their situation and how they need to start looking at how to offer things differently.
Yeah.
All right, Brent, what is your battle cry this week?
Just par for the course for them, by the way.
Okay.
Jesus God.
It was a late pun. It was just, if I may.
I can think of a couple other words other than late.
Proceed, Brent. Proceed.
My battle cry this week goes out to Hitman Go, the new mobile title from Squeenix that is currently available on iOS and coming soon to Android devices. This is a game that I've talked a little bit about on the Axe Factor, and I just wanted to let everybody know about it. If you haven't watched the trailer for it, which in theory you're watching right now, if you haven't checked this game out, I really, really recommend that you do. I'm super impressed with this title. It is a really fascinating kind of reimagining of a Hitman game built for a mobile platform. It takes advantage of everything that mobile platforms do well, and the aesthetic of the game is really terrific. You really have to see it to appreciate it. It looks like these little miniature physical pieces that you might have, for a tabletop game, and played on these really cute little dioramas in this, within this game world. And it's just really, really neat, and the gameplay is actually really compelling. It plays like a hybrid of a Hitman board game and something like an Angry Birds, where each level is kind of a puzzle that has stealth mechanics and there's attack mechanics and things. And there's a couple of different ways that you can get through the levels. There's different achievements you can pick up, like getting through the level in so many moves, or getting through the level without killing anybody. Those kinds of things. It's a really, really fascinating example of taking an established game property and finding a really great fit in mobile game mechanics. And it has everything that mobile games ought to have, that pick up and play kind of feel. But it offers something, I think, that is a really legitimate and worthwhile game experience. So anyway, I just want to point that out to everybody. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. I picked it up. It's $5 on the App Store right now. Like I said, coming to Android at some point in the future. I think it's worth having a look.
I like that they're making assassination more approachable.
Yeah,
I don't think that they've done that well enough. It actually reminds me a little bit of Metal Gear Acid. You remember that?
Yeah. You're
Metal
right.
Gear Acid.
I don't know, like that's very cool. Actually, I like the aesthetic and that kind of.
It sounds like it has everything that it needs to be a real hit.
I would just to point out, I really love when they do a game, and rather than like sort of just try to cram the like full console or game experience into like another platform, they actually make a game
for that platform.
Fits the platform better. That's really
cool. I agree.
Cool.
But that's the thing. It's both of those. It is a game that really fits the mobile platform, and yet it does feel like an authentic interpretation of a Hitman game. The only thing I could liken this to is something like Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, where they were like, let's just take a property and just put it on, put like an entirely new spin on it and see what comes out. This feels a little bit like that.
Just less boobs.
Yeah, which is to say not as good, but...
Right.
All right, so DK, what is your battle cry this week?
I've mentioned this game before on the show, but I'm extremely excited to let everybody know that the Kickstarter campaign for the Chainsaw Incident, a furiously frightening 2D fighter that is actually looking to take old school mechanics, mix them with new school tech on the PlayStation 4. The Kickstarter campaign is live. If you haven't heard of the Chainsaw Incident yet, you definitely should check it out. It's a dark fantasy, story-driven fighting game that actually looks really, really good. If you're a big fighting game fan, TG, right?
Yeah, I actually did see footage of this not too long ago. It was the first time I was exposed to it, and it does. I really like the fluid animation, everything. It looks very cool.
Yes.
Interesting. Kind of almost reminds me of like Darkstalkers or something like that.
A little bit like that. It has some pedigree to the project. The guy that developed Yoshimitsu from the Tekken franchise worked on the Tekken franchise, also the Virtua Fighter franchise and things like that is on board. But the game's really kick-ass. Check it out if you haven't already. And of course, they have a faves list page if you want to follow them on there as well. Very cool. There's still an opportunity to get inside the first 500 people who follow the page are going to be inside the Chainsaw Gang and get their name in the credits. So it's an opportunity to,
that's pretty cool.
Obviously help a little bit with promoting it and spreading the word about some of the videos and the Kickstarter campaign and whatnot. But it's a great opportunity to get involved with it with its faves list page. But despite that, it's just a cool game in general, so check it out. ChainsawIncident.com is the website, and if you're a fighting game fan, you also like story-driven stuff, you should give it a whirl.
Yeah, looks very, very cool. All right, Brent, I think you have our member battle cry.
Yes, indeed, and this week it comes from Ivan. And Vanya says this: I wonder about the future of video games. While each past generation was marked by graphical leaps, We can all remember walking past an EB Games, GameStop, or Best Buy and seeing a PS1, Dreamcast, or 360 and staring in awe. The PS4 and Xbox One have not had a great graphical leap as compared to the past generations. Worse yet, the marketplace and market buzz stir around these games currently available on the last-gen systems are remakes, re-enhancements, games available on last-gen systems, or are prequels or arguably derivative of other game experiences. And sadly, poor AI, awkward game mechanics, and mediocre games still abound. Perhaps my expectations are too high, or the new console incubation period of creativity will last a lot longer than usual. But I ask the question, what if it never gets better than this, my brothers? I am hopeful a hero will emerge to inspire us all beneath these wretched stars.
So Tina Turner was right.
Oh, don't even go there again, Jesus. I guess maybe don't necessarily fault him for feeling this way, but it has only been 6 months. And I think that if you look at the gameplay mechanics of titles that are coming out, specifically, I look at things like Watch Dogs. If you watch that 9-minute gameplay demo of Watch Dogs and the 3 different multiplayer modes that they're showing off, that is a next-gen game. That is a game that is doing something really, really interesting with multiplayer and with a hybrid between single-player and multiplayer mechanics on multiple platforms that I think is really, really interesting. I think Evolve is another great example of a game that's taking, tried and true multiplayer, but putting a new spin on it and doing something really, really interesting in terms of presenting gameplay mechanics.
I agree, but I also agree with Ivan because it does seem less dramatic, the difference, at least I distinctly remember walking past, in the example he's given here, an EB Games and seeing NFL 2K playing on a Dreamcast on a monitor as I walked by, and I honest to God, my thought was, why are they showing football? Like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And I honestly, from a distance, I thought it was a real football game, and being able to go up, or when I saw Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, and different eras always seem to inspire, like, this was not capable. And I do remember our conversations leading into this generation that it would be less about the graphical power, because we are kind of getting really close to those photorealistic type of stuff. It'll always get better, but I remember distinctly talking about some of the things that he's mentioning here, and that those haven't come to fruition. That AI would be sharper, that the game worlds would be richer and more inhabited. Brent, I remember you talking about examples of being able to interact with a lot more in open world games, and as I understand what you're saying about Watch Dogs, but I think one of the big issues is that these companies are trying so hard to maximize their reach. So you have a lot of cross-generational titles that are coming out initially at launch, and nothing's really able to stand out. It will probably still be several years before that wow factor kicks in, and you actually walk into a store and be like, okay, that's something that absolutely could not happen on the last generation.
I look at Alien Isolation. That game looks pretty fucking next gen.
Well, I think it is. It's one of those things where we have that. We don't have that that generational gap, but I think it has a lot to do with just the developers as a whole. Like, we've gotten even more of a focus now than ever of cross-platforming. So it's like, people aren't necessarily able to just say, like, look, we're only developing for one platform, and so we're going to use everything possible in this hardware. That was the thing that was great about a lot of the early games when they would come out on the Dreamcast or on the new 16-bit system after the 8-bit system came out of there, is there was stuff that they could do that the other competition couldn't. So they made games specifically around that feature to really show something off.
Right.
Now, everything is kind of built to the same spec or roughly the same spec, so that... And also the game developers are like, look, we got to maximize our profits, so we're going to make the game, pretty much the same across all platforms, so they don't necessarily ever have a chance to really fill out the special things about any one console, because frankly there aren't as many differences between the consoles anymore. So I do agree with his statement. I think it isn't, and I think it's kind of unfortunate. I really don't know that we're going to... I think it's just going to get worse as time goes on. That this sort of seeing less and less of a leap between them, just because the differences will be more and more subtle, I think.
Yeah. I mean, good point. The jump Jumpity jump. We'll just see what it's like to jump to the next generation. By the next generation, it's just going to be an entertainment device anyway, so we don't even have to worry about games.
Exactly. And the next, it's going to be just in our brain, and we won't, have any. There won't be any difference at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this week, and please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Brett Adams and Daniel Kaiser, I'm your host, Tony Grice. And remember, cry havoc, but always make sure that you do it in a room where you can test for recording devices and make sure that nothing is going on without your knowing.
That's true.
And don't be a rabid racist either. That helps.
Because if you own the LA Clippers and you decide to make a tape, or how did that tape get made anyway? Did she just have it ready?
In all fairness, I think it is an illegal recording. I think she just recorded it like in her pocket, without him listening.
Because it's awfully close. It sounds awfully close, So.
Well, I mean, did you know that he's married and that is his mistress, and it's like known? Like it's just like I just think that's so weird. But anyway.
Yeah. Hey, a clip above or below.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think if he does that for too much longer, somebody's going to clip something below.